Welcome to our VirtuaLaw legal analysis series. In today's episode, we will discuss the meaning, application and case sample of Actus me invito factus non est mens actus. Let's dive right into it. The Latin phrase actus me invito factus non est mens actus can be translated to English as an act done against my will is not my act. This phrase encompasses the concept of voluntariness in law, which means that for an action to be legally considered as one's own, it must be done voluntarily and not under coercion or force. Application in legal context? In the legal context, this principle is crucial when determining the culpability or responsibility of an individual for a particular act. It helps distinguish between actions that were done willingly and those that were forced or involuntary. If an act was committed under duress or coercion, it may not be considered as legally binding or attributable to the person involved. Case sample. Let's consider a scenario to illustrate the application of this principle. Case: robbery under threat. Suppose there was a bank robbery, and the prosecution alleges that the defendant was responsible for the crime. However, during the trial, the defense presents evidence showing that the defendant's actions were a result of being held at gunpoint by the actual robber. The defendant claims that they were forced to assist in the robbery against their will. In this case, the principle actus me invito factus non est mens actus would come into play. The defendant's legal team would argue that the actions were not voluntary, and thus, the defendant should not be held fully responsible for the robbery. The defense would attempt to show that the defendant was coerced into participating and that the act was not a true reflection of their own will. If the court finds the evidence convincing, they might rule that the defendant's actions were indeed involuntary, and the principle would be applied to reduce or eliminate the defendant's criminal liability for the robbery. It's important to note that the application of this principle may vary depending on the specific legal system and jurisdiction in which the case is being tried. Additionally, the burden of proof typically lies with the defendant to demonstrate that their actions were involuntary. That's all for this episode. Stay tuned for more legal insights in our future episode. Remember, understanding the law helps us comprehend the intricacies of our legal system. See you next time. Like and subscribe.